Hello and welcome to another episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of law firm Alchemy. My guest today, I've known for 14-ish years at this point, and I've always enjoyed, although I wish it had been more frequent, some occasional discussions about politics and life beliefs and things I have genuinely enjoyed with him in these little side convos. And I'm excited to just kind of talk with him today because while he and I don't always share the exact same beliefs, I found him to be someone who is willing to engage in the conversation. I say that as a massive positive towards this individual because not everyone is willing to just engage in the conversation in good faith and sometimes have some fun with it, even if you're poking fun at the other individual. He's an incredible attorney and entrepreneur who's done some amazing things both in his law firm and in other companies. Can't wait to talk with him all about it. Jason Epstein, the managing partner of Premier Law Group. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey!
Yeah,
we'll get you to my energy level. Don't worry.
I don't know about that, but yeah, thanks for the kind words as well. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, Jason. So what's the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
Yeah, so I struggled with this question because there's a million things they don't teach you in law school, right? But I think that the answer I came up that I want to give you is they don't teach you that you can choose your own adventure. And what I mean by that is that law school is an assembly line that kind of spits out people that are ready to practice as lawyers and take the bar theoretically. And there's this kind of message, at least in my law school, and I think it's pretty universal, that there's like a path. Like, here's the path to success.
Right.
And here's what you have to do. And I think the sooner I realized that that was nonsense, the happier I've been in my life and as an attorney.
You're someone, Jason, who you mentioned that idea of like when I realized I didn't have to follow a certain path. It's actually interesting because for me, I would never identify you, Jason, as being a person who would have that revelation. It seems like it would be endemic to your personality archetype from what I've known about you. So I'm curious, was this a like law school kind of beat it into you that you've got to be a cog in the machine and you had to reawaken that side of you, or did you have to learn that side, or how'd that breakthrough happen?
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean by that. There's certainly a degree of oppositionalness to my personality in general. And so, I'm not really mainstream or conservative in most of my beliefs, but I think that that there's this kind of, the path that we all imagine as lawyers is like, okay, well, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna, become an associate at some sort of firm, and I'm gonna grind and grind and grind. And then eventually I'm going to become partner, and, maybe things get better, maybe they don't. But it's all about, law kind of teaches like it's all about the grind, and like you got to embrace the grind, and that through that you'll emerge at the next level, whatever that next level is. Mm-hmm. And so that's an interesting question. I don't know if it was ever that I believed it or didn't believe it. It's more that like that's just kind of what's out there. That's kind of unless you decide to really make your own path, that's all that's out there for you when you get the license.
So you obviously decided to make your own path, and I think that's kind of a fun way to describe it, the choose your own adventure. I remember those books fondly. The decision to go and start a firm for yourself, that's a huge decision. What prompted that for you?
I have the honor of being fired from some great places in my day. So before law school, I was fired from Microsoft. That's
nice.
That's a fun story for another day. But I had a law firm that I worked for as a young lawyer, and it was a pretty good situation, and I was doing well, and they offered me a partnership, and those negotiations broke down really rapidly when we started talking about money.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended with a locked door, like, get the fuck out. And so I kind of didn't have a lot of choices, and so I had a young family at that point, and so I was scrambling, and I took a job, and that job was with another personal injury firm that was very established in our area, and one of the more significant firms in my market, and it had a really structured corporate environment. And I realized very quickly all the reasons that I got fired from Microsoft, being back in that kind of structured corporate environment, which is that I'm not good at not saying things that I think need to be said. Even when I know
Jason, you don't say. You don't say, huh?
Even when I know they're going to be unpopular before they leave my mouth, I still sometimes have a compulsion. And fortunately, that compulsion has mellowed a little bit as I've gotten older. But back then in my 30s, and so it wasn't going to work in the long term, being in that kind of structured environment. So I left and started my own thing, and was able to kind of design and build the way I wanted my life to be in the future, and that's where we are now.
And when you launched, was that Premier Law Group the iteration that you have today?
Yeah. So I was really fortunate that I found a guy, my partner Patrick, that already had an existing entity, Premier Law Group, but it was pretty nascent, and so I joined him with Premier Law Group, and then we turned it into what it is now. It was something different when I joined, but it quickly evolved.
So I really wanted to ask you about that dynamic with Patrick, because I love getting the chance to talk with folks like you, Tim Semmelroth, Kellum Parks, John Cooper, folks who have, say, another like actual partner in the practice that they've grown together, because it's a different dynamic. I mean, in the worlds that you and I have traveled in, with Ben and everything, it's a lot of solo owners as opposed to multi-owner firms. I'm curious, what advantages have you found having Patrick as a partner?
I mean, a ton. I mean, first of all, Patrick's really super smart. And so that's always great to be around smart people. But his strengths are very much my weaknesses, and vice versa. And there's some crossover where we're both not bad at something. But the things that he either likes or doesn't mind doing are the things that I absolutely don't ever want to do again. And so it has worked out really well for us to kind of divide the roles of managing and running a firm to our strengths.
I usually find there's, say, one person who's really heavy on the business development side, another person who's maybe more of the legal operations, legal operator. Is that a similar dynamic?
Yeah. Like I have no interest in doing lawyer stuff mostly. And I don't know that I was ever really a great litigator. I mean, I did it. I felt like, I felt competent, but Patrick's really, really good at that stuff. And he'll, when there's something to do, he'll like dig in and outwork anybody and win an issue or win a case. And he's good at it. And I was never great at it. I could do it, but I didn't love it. And so, I do the soft side. Yeah, I do the marketing and the more the people management and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So when you guys, and I think this is an important part, when you do have a partnership, you're not going to agree 100% of the time, obviously, right? You're going to have disagreements. I'm curious, over time, how have you guys built a way to handle some type of disagreement between the two of you?
The joke in our office is that if you ask Patrick what to do and then you ask Jason what to do, you're going to get opposite answers. And it's actually like true. Like we do disagree about most stuff, actually. I think the key is being able to stay in our lanes. So, I don't, if somebody asks me a question like a legal-ish or a legal strategy question, I mean, I may chime in and give my sense or my advice. But if Patrick's is contrary, I say, hey, let's do what he said. Because ultimately, number one, I think he's better at it. But number two, in that role, you're going to have to answer to him. You're not going to have to answer to me because, he's supervising that role. And similarly, when I make decisions, even if he doesn't, it's not what he would do or he doesn't agree with it or kind of in my lane, he's going to defer to me. Ultimately, the place that marries up really well is that the reason that both of us are doing this is to make as much money as we can so that we can retire when we want to retire. And so that kind of high level goal aligns everything else.
I love that. There's that raw sense of capitalism right in there, Jason. You're also the guy who I remember you saying, when people walk into my office, there's a big Barack Obama poster for them, and Jason's the guy who probably is going to show up to the meeting in the t-shirt. And those are things I was like, I get along with this vibe of this semi sort of iconoclastic. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to show up how I should show up. And I actually saw you commenting on a LinkedIn post the other day as we're recording this about a guy who said, I don't understand lawyers who show up in a ball cap and a t-shirt, right? Like, how can you even be a lawyer? Did you start from I got to wear a suit and break through, or were you from the beginning, like, give me my t-shirts and my college hoodies?
Yeah. Well, when I worked for other people, you have to do what they want, right? So,
that's right. Yeah.
I mean, there were, certainly I wore suits for, the first few years of my career, but as soon as I wasn't working for other people anymore, I don't think that those kind of, sorry, my lights turn themselves off if I don't read my, I don't think that those kind of vestiges of, the 50s, 60s and 70s and 80s are important to people anymore. And, the world is kind of, technology has shrunk the world in all these ways, and, social media, and everybody knows everybody, and everybody's in everybody's business. And part of that is that everything has become much more informal. And so, I don't think, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't think that it's important to the average person that their lawyer is wearing a suit anymore. And because I don't wear suits anymore. I mean, the last time I wore a suit, I was thinking about this when I made that post. The last time I wore a suit was at my mom's funeral. So it's like, I don't want to put them on myself. And I know my clients don't want to put them on. And so I don't think they care that I'm not wearing a suit. All they care about is, hey, do I like this guy? Do I trust him? And is he going to do a good job for me? And so I actually see the suit, kind of interesting linguistically. It's akin to a suit of armor that lawyers put on their suit of armor before they go into combat. And, I'm trying to actually have a relationship with my clients. And so I don't need that separation, that suit of armor to show that, like, hey, I'm different than you, or I'm better than you, or I'm, whatever. I'm just a guy who happens to be a lawyer and can solve this particular problem for you.
So now I'm interested with him being the other side of this equation. Is Patrick the guy who wears the suits, or is he in t-shirts as well?
So that's a good question. So Patrick does sometimes wear a suit to the office for no reason. I would say maybe twice a month that'll happen. Okay. And I always ask him, like, if he got a speeding ticket and he has to go to court. But Patrick, I know I think you've met Patrick once or twice. Patrick still plays, like, very competitive soccer. He was a semi-professional soccer player, and he's 50 and he still plays competitive soccer.
Whoa.
And so he is more often than not going to be wearing some sort of off-field soccer gear.
There we go. So that's his vibe, but he's not, necessarily putting on the suit of armor specifically because he's a litigator and that type of thing. It's just sometimes he wants to wear the suit, so why not?
Yeah. I mean, that's right. I mean, I think the way he looks at it is that he's got them and they're nice and they look good. So sometimes he should wear them and to look.
Quite frankly, that's how I am, Jason. I've got some suits in the closet, even though I'm from home. There are days where I'll put on suits and I'll just be doing copywriting because I don't know, I've got it. Might as well use it. Who cares?
I mean, but there's a part of that where it changes your mindset.
It does.
So, like, I bet the copy you write is different when you're wearing a suit than when you're wearing, a dirty t-shirt.
100%.
So, yeah, I mean, there's part of that you do need to kind of get in that role for certain tasks.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, kind of adjacent to copywriting, the marketing world, right? This is something that I've seen you adapt to so many different marketing changes, both online and offline over the last, 13, 14 years. You've seen a lot of ebbs and flows, a lot of waves. I'm curious right now where you are with your marketing and what you're starting to put together for, future success for the firm.
Yeah, well, I think our mutual mentor, Ben, every time there's something new, he's always going to say, he's always going to kind of distill it back to like, okay, but what is this really? Like, what's the point really? And I think that's a good way to look at it, because there's all these new things are still it's the fundamentals that matter. It's the, what's the message? Who are you getting it to? When in their journey? And what is the response you want? So I think as new stuff evolves, like, so we just, for example, switched and implemented case status. Are you familiar with case status?
Yes, but there may be some in the audience who are not.
Yeah. So case status is basically, it marries into our case management system, and it's a texting platform. But if the person engages with it, it directs them to an app that they download, and then your communications are through the app. So if they don't download the app, they still get the text. But if they do download the app, then it automates a bunch of things that happen in the app for the client experience. And so that's kind of like a shiny new object, right? Like, because I was using Hona, which was a similar product, but more just the texting platform. And when we switched, like, it was instantly effective and produced the desired effect, which was it boosted our reviews, I think, like 300% in like 3 weeks.
Wow.
The rate of reviews, not the overall number of reviews. And so that's an example where, like, hey, there was this new thing, and we went to it, and it worked, and I'm glad we did. But those messages are still the same that we're delivering through this new medium, which is like, here's what we do, here's
Right.
what we're about for the client. We hope we're doing a good job. Please, leave us a review or let us know how we can improve and all that stuff. So I think, circle back, I think you got to kind of have the fundamentals of, like, know who you are and what you're trying to deliver to what audience. And if you know those things, and if you're authentic with yourself, then it's all just a question of how am I going to deliver that message? What I've seen, and I'm sure what you've seen, when we first met, it was always like, hey, what's the new trick to get Google to rank better? Or like, what's the new thing to do in PPC that's going to move the needle? And what I think the game has changed, because, now SEO is more about, like, long-term quality content that helps people. And PPC has become a tool for, in my opinion, the mega firms, the people that are willing to burn, 150 grand a month on PPC and just buy the market. And so it's become harder and harder to compete on those tricks. And so I think, if you're not prepared to go into mass media and, start doing TV or radio and billboards and stuff, really the key is community-based marketing. So I think it's kind of, all the new stuff is really forcing the old stuff again, which is, go make real relationships with real people.
Yeah, I've seen you actually share a lot recently on social media about some of the like community marketing efforts that you're undertaking. Talked recently about the Backpacks program that was taken over by the YMCA. How long have you been really actively involved in the community that way? And what are some of the best projects that you've undertaken in that space?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while that we've been doing stuff. The Backpack one was super fun when we started it. I mean, the genesis is that my kids were young and going to elementary school, and I saw that there were some kids there that needed some help, just in pickups and drop-offs. It was just apparent kind of, who the people that maybe were less fortunate were. And I thought, like, hey, I know the school provides, like, reduced lunches and stuff, and they'll feed them breakfast and stuff, but what happens on the weekends when they don't have school? And so, I saw a need there. So we put together a program. Well, actually, here's the real funny part. So first I went to the PTA and said, hey, PTA, I see this need at our school. And so I think we should put together this program where we, provide food for the kids for the weekends. And the PTA told me, no, we only do things that benefit all the students, like have a movie night at school. And I'm like, okay, but that, do we need to watch Finding Nemo again, or do these kids need food? So I did it myself. And so, I went to Costco, would make bags of food, and I would deliver them to the school, and they would give them out to the kids that needed them on a weekly basis. And it was great. It was fulfilling because I knew we were helping. I knew the kids needed it. I didn't ask for any publicity. I didn't ask for anything back. It was just something we were doing. And then when it rolled into the next year, I was like, hey, look, this is just a lot of work. I mean, ultimately, it was between the Costco trips and putting the bags together and dropping off. It was just a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so I met with someone at the YMCA and talked to them about it, and they took it over and made it like a regional program. So I would love to say that it was like a unique idea that was mine. And I think probably I heard it at one of our early meetings. Somebody else in another market was doing something similar. And so, it worked out really well. And ultimately, it turned into something bigger that's helping people.
Which is fantastic. You can combine business and altruism together, which is very fun, even in the midst of being able to make a great amount of money. Now, I also know that you're not just, strictly a legal entrepreneur. You've done some things in other spaces. You've operated outside of just a law firm. So I'm curious, what strategies have you either pulled in from some of those enterprises or taken with you over to those enterprises?
Yeah, I mean, so what you're referring to is that I helped my sister who had a Medi Spa that was local, and she was kind of stagnant and struggling, and it had grown into kind of an unwieldy monster for her, and so she needed some help with kind of management and then future direction and stuff, and ultimately it transitioned in about 2.5 years of me joining it into a large sale to private equity. I think what I would say, I learned, first of all, I learned how ridiculously complicated the accounting is in a private equity sale. Like, it's like mind-numbingly complicated, and like the disclosures and like all the stuff that went on. We hired a different lawyer to represent us on the seller side for that acquisition, and like that guy was worth every penny. Like those lawyers, talk about detail oriented. They get it. So I did learn that, but I would say the main thing I learned with respect to our conversation is that really every business. I mean, so can you imagine anything more different than hey, I'm representing people in car accidents to, hey, I want you to come get Botox injected in your face. Like they're very different markets, but what you're doing is all the same. Where are these people looking? What is the message they want? What is the experience they're looking for? What is the relationship that we want to create? How do we? The cool thing about that business was that it was recurring. So it's like, how do we build this, recurring revenue structure where we, know that people are going to come back and do things, become repeat customers. And so all of that was really cool, kind of applying this stuff that I've learned running a law firm into like a real business. It was cool and it was fun and I was enjoying it. I'm bummed that it sold, but it was the right move for sure for my sister. So I don't blame her.
How often do you think about that type of thing, a sale for your law firm?
I think about it a lot. I mean, we know reading the tea leaves, it kind of, we're getting different jurisdictions that are allowing non-lawyer ownership now. So it's just a matter of time before private equity comes and starts gobbling up law firms, or, some of those other bigger firms see more of a reason to come into different states and do it to beat private equity. So I think about it a lot. I think about, how do we position ourselves to maximize value when that happens. And that's, I think that's the mode that we've been in for a while is like, how do we make money? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that how do we make money and also build our firm so that it has future value are aligned pretty well. Um, through luck, I suppose. We're called Premier Law Group instead of Kang and Epstein, so that's a good start. But we're always, when decisions we make about marketing marketing ideas or marketing projects that we're going to take on, it's always like, well, what does this look like later on for an acquisition? So we're always considering that, and how do we kind of help ourselves move that along so that we will be more valuable at some point.
I see one of the biggest struggles, obviously, for a lot of firm owners when they're even thinking about this is, sure, you've got it named Premier Law Group, but there's so many consequential relationships that come through Patrick, that come through Jason, the representatives in the community. What role does that play, you think, in evaluating the firm, and what are you doing to inoculate the firm against that concern?
Yeah, I think probably nothing really that smart is the truth. I mean, because
I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like either you're like a mass media guy, right? So like if we were advertising on TV, then it's like, okay, if I'm not here, it doesn't matter, because the TV is going to keep the calls coming in, at least for the foreseeable future. So like the game that we're playing, the size we are, it is. There are a lot of relationships that are important. It is relationship based. So I guess what we try to do is, I don't do most of those things alone. I'll bring in my associate attorneys or one of my staff members, and so to make it more about the team, so that ultimately, if I do step back, and by the way, the way we run our firm is we have a pre-litigation silo and a litigation silo. So everybody starts off with me as the pre-litigation person. So I'm like the signer, I'm the face, I'm the one that meets all the new clients, and then they get transferred to litigation if they need to be transferred to litigation. And so it's all about here's the team we built, here's the process that we're going to put you through as a client, and it's our proven method. And so I'm never selling to anyone, whether it's to a doctor or a particular client. I'm never selling me anyways. I'm selling the team. Okay. And so I don't need to be there for the team to continue. And I think most of my referral partners and people that send us business know that it's not about me, it's about the firm. And so I think that's probably what you need to do in order to inoculate yourself when you're this size. When you get huge, it doesn't matter. Nobody's looking for the specific attorney anymore.
Yeah, honestly, the firms I'm most worried about when it comes to the private equity stuff is definitely those firms that are hovering in that upper six and anything below about $3 million per year, because it's so key person oriented, and the multiple on the practice is not as significant as most people expect. And that is definitely an issue, whether it's someone like a Tomlin Festi doing an evaluation or Ed Alexander doing evaluations, looking at how that multiple, it's amazing how much the multiplier number grows on that EBITDA or whatever we're using as the baseline measurement as you get bigger and bigger. It's one of the reasons I think firm owners should continue to scale if they want to have that big future event. For the Meta Spa, in the key person scenario, the inoculation process, how much was that a concern over in that space?
It was a concern. It was an interesting process, because the reason I came in really is that, my sister had been running this business for, I think, 17 years before I came in. And she started as just herself and then, built it up to I think 15 employees or something like that. And, she was doing great revenues. And so that wasn't the problem. But the problem was that she was, she was like she had her tendrils in everything. Like there was no decision that was made about anything that she wasn't making. And so my first role is I got her out of running the business on a day-to-day basis. And that, I mean, that was like, having dental work. Like that was brutal because these people, some of her employees have been with her, 10, 12 years, were used to asking her everything all the time. And I had to really set it up so that like, hey, here's the structure and you don't lose her cell phone number, and everyone had her number. They were all friends too, And so, so once I got her out of the running of the day-to-day business into more of a strategic role, then that was really less of a problem. So when the private equity came calling, we were already there where they weren't worried about, hey, is Jennifer going to come to the office every day? Because she wasn't in the office anyways. And so, there were still some key employees that we had to, figure out a way to work them into the deal and stuff. But as far as, getting them interested without her there was not a problem. And I think that's the way that, ultimately that we've built a lot of this business is, we do a lot of the high level strategic stuff. And yes, as of now, I'm still working in the business as well, having to do a job. But I'm easily replaceable with that job. Like I could get anybody else to do what I do in the firm.
I mean, that's a key, right? Is because if an investor comes in some ways they could look at that as a plus. Like, oh, Jason is a guy, he's got profit, salary, etc. I could pay someone less than Jason currently pays himself to do the exact same job. And I get to take over as CEO or my managing group takes over to run all this. And there's an immediate profit margin available to them for them to start taking all that out. For you, Jason, you have these firm owners who are in that range, that upper 6, lower 7-figure range. You touched on it a little bit, talking about your sister, getting her out of the day-to-day operations. For firm owners who are in that upper 6, low 7 range, what advice would you give them as part of unlocking that next multiple in growth and value of the firm?
And again, it's funny because all this stuff is like not new, like this is like E-Myth stuff, like, and we've been reading that book for forever. You have to realize that, first of all, I already knew that I wasn't the best at everything, right? So I never operated under that. Yeah. I mean, I never operated under that assumption, but even if you do think you're the best, that's not really the issue. Like is the work that's going to be delivered in the end product going to meet your standards, even if somebody else does it? And if the answer is yes, then it's probably better to have somebody else do it and focus on the things that are going to actually drive the profits. And so it's kind of, I think it's that the EOS is delegate and elevate, so like things that I can delegate that I know are going to get done. And look, it may not be the way I'm going to do it, and it may not be as fast, and it may not be as good, but it's going to be good enough. And, as long as you're maintaining quality control, and that's really the key, are you maintaining quality control? Then does it really matter if I'm doing it or not doing it? And I think as lawyers, we all, some of that's intuitive because like you would think to yourself like, hey, look, I'm not going to actually file this complaint. Like, so olden days, when I first started, one of the first things I remember I had to do, 25 years ago was like, we had something that my boss that needed to be filed. I actually drove to the courthouse and filed the document with the clerk. Okay. Well, that was before e-filing. But, now nobody thought that was the best use of an attorney's time, but we needed to do it, in that particular circumstance for whatever. Yeah. But so, like we're used to giving those tasks over to legal assistants or, paralegals that it's like, hey, this doesn't need a lawyer to look at it. It just needs somebody to look at it. And that's fine. And so it's, more being willing to step back from the things that we see are like, I'm the only one that can do this and realize like, nah, everybody can do it. You're not that special. Everybody can do it as long as you've got a process and you've got a, and you've got a quality control. It doesn't matter.
Your parents lied to you when they told you how special you are.
My parents lied to me about a lot of things. I was actually just thinking about my next super lawyer ad. So all my super lawyer ads are like jokes every year. So and Tiff and we have fun with it every year. So 2 years ago, what we did is we photoshopped me and made me like 8 feet tall. So it's a firm picture, and I'm like a giant. And so then this year we shrunk me down to like 60%, and then blew up one of my associates' heads. So it's like, he's a big bobblehead. And I was thinking next year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say at the top, the headline's going to be, Seattle's most attractive lawyers. Voted Seattle's most attractive lawyers. And then the asterisk was going to be by my mom. Because so yes, my parents told me I was the most handsome boy in the world, and I was the smartest boy in the world. It turns out both of those things are not true.
But it was a very kind lie of them, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, I mean, I say the same things to my kids, so we'll see if it's true or not with them.
There you go. Jason, before I ask you the final question of this, if people are interested in connecting with you, getting to know you more, etc., what's the best place to send them to?
PremierLawGroup.com is our website. I'm Jason at PremierLawGroup.com, so you can always email me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jason Epstein, spelled the same way as Jeffrey. It's just I'm Jason, not Jeffrey, not related. Always happy to talk.
Awesome. All right, Jason, last question for you. What are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
I did not know that was coming. So I'm currently reading a series by an author, Adrian Tchaikovsky. Normally, I only read sci-fi. That's kind of like, I don't like to read a lot of nonfiction books. I like to read kind of hard sci-fi. Mm-hmm. But Adrian Tchaikovsky's great at that. He's got a book that's called Children of the Mind. It's a trilogy that is really excellent. But I'm right now reading a fantasy series that he wrote before he turned more sci-fi. And it's called what's it called? Something of the Apt, Kingdom of the Apt, Tale of the Apt, the Apt series. If you look up Adrian Tchaikovsky, the Apt series, and it's like 13 books long, and I'm like on book 8, and it's. I normally don't like fantasy. I've never read Lord of the Rings, but I'm digging this, and I'm going to see it through to the end. I'll tell you another good sci-fi though. X-Force. Have you ever read Expeditionary Force?
No, for me, X-Force is strictly an X-Men sort of reference point.
It's EX, so it's short for Expeditionary Force, and it takes place after there's an alien invasion of Earth, and then Earth has to defend ourselves. And it turns out the galaxy is much more populated than we knew. And I think he's 15 books into that series, and it's fast. I mean, it's not like It's not a hard read. And those are both good things. Okay, watching. I'm digging Tulsa King. Have you watched Tulsa King?
I haven't. That's the Sly Stallone one, right?
It is, and I didn't think I was going to like it, and I really do. And then also, I kind of binged Lioness on Paramount Plus, also, which Zoe Saldana and Nicole Kidman, and season 2 just launched to that. And both of those shows, interestingly, are created and partially written by Taylor Sheridan, who is a great story, like how that guy, was washing out of Hollywood and was a former rodeo rider, and now he's like, in charge of everything.
He owns Paramount pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, and I love both those shows. And it's okay. So that was reading and watching. What was the last one?
Listening to.
This is bizarre. Okay, so I think I've shared this with you that I have a Pearl Jam tattoo that is circa 1991. Like I'm like OG Seattle, Pearl Jam, grunge, Nirvana. But I don't even know how I found this, but I'm digging Jelly Roll right now.
Oh man, he just to me popped out of nowhere. I'm sure a lot of people saw it coming, but whoa, he's everywhere now.
Yeah, and interestingly, I don't like country, At least I tell myself I don't. So I'm categorizing him as Americana. That's how I'm choosing to view it. Kind of
I
in
love
like
it.
the Jason Isbell vein.
That's fair.
And I'm digging Jelly Roll. My wife is a huge Post Malone fan. And as much as I don't want to like Post Malone, every time I listen to it, I'm like, yeah, no, it's pretty good.
I feel the exact same way, Jason. Like I remember like seeing Post Malone, and admittedly, I fully on appearance is like, this is definitely going to be music I'm not going to care for. And then my wife starts pointing out like, oh yeah, you know that's a Post Malone song that I'm like bopping along to. I'm like, wait, no, it's not. No, I mean, listen to the smoothness of that voice. There's no way.
You know what I think that the thing is with both Jelly Roll and Post Malone actually is that, and it kind of dovetails into what we were talking about before. Is I think the reason I like them both, and I think the reason that they resonate, is because they're authentic. So they're both writing and singing their own songs, first of all,
Yeah.
which not a lot of people do anymore. And second of all, it's about like real struggles and real problems. And nobody wants to hear about how great your life is all the time, and how you're rolling in Ferraris, and making all the money, or having all these great experiences like Taylor, or even her lovely breakups. Like still even her breakups are beautiful, right? Um, but I think there's something kind of raw and real that when people are vulnerable, it resonates with us, and I think we can recognize it.
It's really interesting because when you like those couple of artists, Jelly Roll and Post Malone, makes me think of an artist who should have had his opportunity to excel as a singer, but never had the chance despite his voice being insanely good, which is T-Pain. The man who is infamous for auto-tune is an absolutely angelic singer. It's astonishing. If you go and watch his NPR Tiny Desk concert, you literally won't believe at first that that's the voice coming out because you're so used to the, all the stuff that was in the late aughts of his.
Yeah.
Nice to see people embrace just, saying, screw it. I'm just going to be who I am, even if who I am surprises people based on the way that I look.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And those two guys can't hide.
No, they can't.
Malone and Jelly Roll cannot hide. So.
Not in the least. Well, Jason, my friend, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us here to share your wisdom, your insights, bringing all the stuff from the meta spa into the legal space and back over in the other direction. It really is a delight to catch up with you and talk shop.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
And we'll see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.